No, maybe change this screen.
One, two, yeah.
Julian. Ja, das ist gut. Wir brauchen noch eine Sekunde. On a l'écran?
C'est quoi ça? Pourquoi c'est...
C'est là, l'écran. Oh. Il y a quelque chose qui ne va pas à l'écran.
Ah.
Ok.
There's the problem with the screen.
Finally. Or maybe we'll give everything to them on the USB key if it's not working. Ça marche? We are in Tromso. Not coming. If it doesn't come, we'll give you on the USB. Like this, yeah. And mine is mine working?
Hello?
It's working. Okay. Yeah.
Are you gonna use that one then? Okay.
Because it's
Just wave at me and like.
Trond? Is everything okay here?
Come back in 10 minutes.
Okay. Je laisse ça comme ça. Je vais au début, non? On va au début. Il n'y a pas de problème. Je vais mettre ça au début d'abord. C'est comme ça. Parce que je l'ai agrandi. Notre PowerPoint. Ok. Oui, oui. C'est ça? C'est bon, non? Tout est expliqué, c'est bon par rapport à la projection des films. Parce que moi j'ai une priorité, c'est mon film, il faut pas qu'elle ait pas le film. Ah d'accord. Ah, mais, ok. Some film, but not mine.
Yeah, but that's doing after the whole thing. But it's okay. Everything's...
Hello. Hi, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Steve Vertovak. I'm the managing director of the Max Planck Institute for the Study of Religious and Ethnic Diversity. That's an institute here in Göttingen. And I've been asked to give a short welcoming set of remarks because our institute are sort of co-sponsors of this conference within the film festival. But really I have to say it's Beata and Anna and Torsten that have done all the work. I just have a kind of symbolic function here of cutting the ribbon and saying welcome. So welcome everybody. But before I turn over to Torsten to talk a bit more about the theme of the conference, I just want to share a relevant kind of anecdote about questions of collaboration and authorial diversity and so forth. I was trained in American anthropology many decades ago, a very Geertzian type of American anthropology. And that was up until the mid-1980s when people will know of the book Writing Culture, edited by Clifford and Marcus, was published. I think the book forms a kind of basis for the conference starting today. It dealt with issues about ethnography, the role of the researcher, positionality, power, representation, politics, all of these sorts of things that really brought into question the whole anthropological enterprise, basically. And I remember American anthropology kind of froze, and some would say it almost closed down the discipline. It was such a powerful impact of who are we to speak for the informant, to speak for the other, to choose the images, to choose the materials by which a culture is represented. And so in American anthropology, this was a real kind of profound moment of introspection. But it was right in the mid-80s that I moved to England, where writing culture basically didn't have any impact. They weren't interested. And it was a very kind of arrogant reaction. Some might even call it now imperialistic reaction to who will question our authority going to the field. This is particularly Oxford and Cambridge, but nevertheless, the British reaction was very different than the American reaction. I'd be interested to hear from colleagues how writing culture went down in German anthropology. My guess is that it probably didn't make much of an impact at first. I was a visiting fellow at the Free University in Berlin in the early 90s, and German anthropology seemed at that time like it was from a bygone era as well. But the main point is that by now, 2022, I think these questions of representation, of power, of authorship, of representation have percolated throughout the discipline worldwide. We've all come to look at our positionality in the field. And this is not just in anthropology. Our Max Planck Institute is a very interdisciplinary place. We have political scientists, sociologists, geographers, we've even had architects. And I think these questions of positionality representation now go through all these disciplines. They certainly go through all of our discussions together. And it's not that we've sort of arrived at a common point. There's still a lot of discussion to be had about how best to do ethnography, how best to represent the people who we work with, the contexts where we work and so forth, as represented in the sort of films that we're going to see as well. So because of this ongoing need for further conversation about these issues, this is why I was so interested and keen to sign up and have our institute be one of the co-sponsors of this conference. So I trust we're going to have some interesting discussions, very interesting films ahead. We still have lots to learn and talk about, and I look forward to that and hope everyone else enjoys and learns from this conference as well. Torsten.
Thank you very much, Steve, for the welcome address. Who speaks? This question aims to shed more light on the producers of ethnographies. It was first discussed intensively almost 40 years ago in the course of the writing culture debate and in the so-called crisis of representation that followed it. Who are the people who raise their voices in ethnographic products, such as written monographs, but also in films and other formats of mediation, and who claim an authorial legitimacy for themselves and their work? Which textual methods, in the broadest sense, do they use to try to generate this? What kind of discourses, dispositives, and epistemes underlie this specific ethnographic authorial self-understanding? Some aspects of these questions have been intensively discussed in recent years. In this context, it has primarily been anthropological and sociological approaches that have revealed the construction of the self of ethnological researchers. Thus, it has become clear that the hegemonic notion of how ethnographic research takes place can be characterized by the form of subjectification of the ethnographic self. Closely following Michel Foucault, historian Philippe Sarrazin understands a form of subjectification as the ability of individuals to place themselves in a certain relationship to themselves, to act consciously, to shape one's life, and to change oneself. In this context, the figure of the ethnographic self refers to a work ethic that is condensed in the notion of a lone ethnographer. The lone ethnographer is a researching person who is solely responsible for pursuing intensive work. This work is often inseparable from leisure time and also requires the use of one's own emotionality as a resource. The undertaking of ethnography, especially in the phase of field research, as cultural anthropologist Alexa Ferber points out, aims at the ethos of the subjectively, holistically involved researcher who, Ferber continues, functions as source and source interpreter in one. This work ethos also has a tradition in ethnographic film discourse. It operates under the term of the self-filming ethnologist, which has been repeatedly highlighted in its heuristic significance for ethnographic filmmaking by Margaret Mead, Rolf Hussmann, Edmund Ballhaus, Walter Leimgruber, and others. The figure of the self-filming ethnologist requires individuals to use their bodies as a medium, especially during filming, and to reflect on them permanently in a critical way with regard to their work with the camera in the field. This entails a high level of bodily involvement. This in turn forms the basis of this form of capitalization of self-experience, as Jean Rouge has conceptualized in the state of the so-called cinetrance. As much as the aforementioned work ethos dominates the discourse, the notion of a single methodological and epistemically relevant auctorial agency that underlies is problematic. On the one hand, the image suppresses the fact that there are basically always several people involved in films, even if their involvement often takes a backseat to the person of the author in the external presentation. On the other hand, the figure of the self-filming and thus the solely responsible ethnologist forces one to ask critically who has the possibility to make themselves heard in ethnographic documentaries at all. This last point in particular has been discussed again and again in recent years and is especially virulent in light of a still white and male-dominated cinema and television film industry. The question that arises from this is how social diversity can also be represented in film, and not only in form of the actors in front of the camera, but also in relation to the decision makers behind. The symposium aims to take up some of these aspects and to discuss them for the genre of ethnographic film. Specifically, it asks about the personal and institutional constellations in which ethnographic films are or can be made today, beyond the often colored figure of the ethnographic self. On the one hand, it wants to reflect on production practices that, like film collectives, conceptualize the influence of the many and thus consciously move away from the idea of one responsible filmmaker. In addition, the filmed actors can also be part of the media polyphony, for example, when they participate in projects as partners of the filmmakers in a cooperative or collaborative way. In addition to such explicit forms of auctorial diversity, the symposium will also address the many more implicit forms of polyphony, those that result from a close familial bond between filmmakers and filmed subjects, or in the case of essay films and found footage films, those that stem from the use of third-party material and thus lend explosive force to the question of authorship, and not only in legal terms. In the synopsis of the contributions, the symposium also wants to critically ask on a superordinate level which methodological, research, ethical, legal, but also monetary questions actually result from this explicit and implicit auctorial polyphonies of current ethnographic film projects. How viable is the image of the self-filming ethnologist actually still? What blind spots does it create? And how can it be heuristically and methodologically recontextualized and thus alternately relativized and or specified? I am looking forward to an exciting symposium and thank all contributors already now for critical stimulating the discussions on one or the other questions. Thank you very much.
Hey, hi. My name is Martin Gruber. I'm a visual anthropologist at the Department of Anthropology and Cultural Research at the University of Bremen. And I've been dealing with collaborative and participatory methods throughout my research, and I'm happy to chair the first two sessions of the conference. And for the first session, I would like to ask Sidylamine, Bagayoko, and Trond Waage onto the stage.
We are going to sit here. Thank you very much to the organizer for inviting us. It's really an honor to be here. And we very much like the invitation, and I'm thrilled to be here when I wrote of my PhD in early 2000, there was 2 books that was key to me. One was Writing Culture, and the other was Urban Context, which Professor Vertovak edited. So I feel at home here. And we are now going to talk about a project that recently started, but which is actually a part of a 30-year ongoing project. And we're going to talk very concretely about this concept, this magic word that is so often used in our circles, collaboration. So we will try to be very concrete about what we mean by collaboration. So we have titled our presentation, Sahel on Sahel, Collaborative Visual Anthropology, a tutorial, diversity, creating space for dialogue in conflict-ridden region. Okay. Oh, you handle this thing, right? Or?
I'm not sure if it's working from there.
I think it does. Okay, so in the program, there are 3 names, right? So it is Sidylamine Bagayoko, it is Mouazamou Ahmadou, and myself, Trond. And just to talk about collaboration, right? So Mouazamou, which you here see down to the left with my youngest son, tend to call him his favorite adult friend. And this guy, when I was a PhD student in Gaundre in 1998, recently arrived with our baby and my wife and new to Africa, there was this young guy living on the other side of the city who would always come and knock on my door and ask for documents and discussions and wanted to practice English and so on. So that was Mouazamou. And he became a kind of friend and field assistant. And in my PhD, there's a book, it's a chapter about him and his milieu. And then 2 years later, he came to Tromsø and became a master's student in visual anthropology. And he was then another 5 years later part of building up the visual anthropology department at the University of Maroua in northern Cameroon. Mouazamou, he also tended to, in 98, give me the ID and open the door to the milieu to what became my film for my PhD, which was about a school teacher. And that's where Sidylamine comes in.
Okay, thank you so much. My name is Sidylamine Bagayoko. I'm associate professor at the University of Bamako in Mali. As Trond Waage said, the collaboration starts since long time. I can say that since 2000, when the professor of all of us, but the professor of Trond Waage, Lisbeth Altodat, was using to come to Mali in order to set up the collaboration between the Arctic University of Tromsø and the University of Bamako. I used to meet her, and she used to tell me that if I'm interested to come to Tromsø, that was 22 years ago. But 6 years ago, I got the scholarship to come to Tromsø, and I met Mouazamou. Mouazamou graduated. He already had his master, and we become friends in September. In October, he was staying for 3 months in Tromsø, and I was calling Mouazamou my master, in French, mon maître, because I was starting a master in visual anthropology, and he already had his master, and he was giving me several advice. And he was always in the office of Trond Waage when Trond Waage was in a sabbatical year or something like that, but he was not in Tromsø at that time. And when we were choosing our topics in December, he advised me that I can work on education or water problem or something related to urban anthropology. And that was almost the subject of Trond Waage, because Trond Waage made a film on titled "The Master Said," Le Maître a dit, and that encouraged me to work in that topic. And I was Professor Peter Crawford was my supervisor, but Trond was giving me some informal advice, and we continued to work together. And I was here in Göttingen, in this room, I think in 2010, with Professor Lisbeth Oldedal and Mouazamou, and we are doing a presentation there. And we continue apart Mouazamou in Gaoundéré and after in Maroua. And me, I continue to work in Bamako in the Institute of Humanities, and also another center called the Conservatory of Art and Multimedia. And I continue doing until 2019, when Trond come back again with this idea of Sahel on Sahel, the base of this new project we are going to talk about.
Okay. The next slide. Yeah, so more, so we have, and we must say that Massimo was supposed to be here, but he is at airport in Istanbul. So there was visa problems and then technical problems with his plane, which hindered him to be here. So yeah, there should be a third person here. But then just, this is a kind of brief resume of our collaboration with universities in the Sahel. So Gaoundéré, we celebrated 30 years of collaboration this January. The birthday party picture is on the right side. But I think there's one thing that has to be mentioned, which is of extreme importance, is that we, at our master program, which used to be called Visual Culture Studies, we have always recruited students from these two places, from Cameroon and from Mali. So we have, over the years, I'm not sure exactly the number, but about 40 master students that have passed through our system. And then we have had several collaborative projects, which has been very much on this capacity building part. So we've been trying to build institutions in the sense of building up institutions in visual anthropology departments. The collaboration in Bamako got an end in 2012 due to the civil war. And what you see here is a photo where we celebrated the end of the Viscam project and the opening of the Sahel on Sahel projects, which we are going to talk about now. And here is what the Sahel project is about.
This new project, as you said, talking about the background of collaboration. We had this collaboration in Gaoundéré Anthropos since 1922 till now.
1992.
1992. Yeah, I'm sorry. And from Bamako, it was the first project start from 2006 to 2012, as I said, because of the crisis. But from those experiences, and we are starting this, we started already this new project that we opened in Gaoundéré in January. The project is having 4 partners universities. University of Bamako, which is the partner number 1, Gaoundéré, the partner number 2, Maroua, both in the northern Cameroon, partner number 3, and Niamey, the partner number 4.
And Tromsø.
And Tromsø also, the main partner. We got 2 million, around 2 million euro, and in all the 4 universities, We are building the new master program. The master program started already in Bamako. I'm the coordinator. And Mouazamou, as we say that, is stuck in Istanbul, is coming tonight in Göttingen. He is the coordinator in Marwa, Northern Cameroon. And Saliu, one of the PhD student of Trond, is the coordinator of Ngaoundéré. And Umaru, one of our partner also, is the coordinator of Niamey in Niger. And the master is already running in Bamako, in Ngaoundéré, and in Marwa. But what we did at the beginning is to send some students to Marwa, the partnership between South and South. And those students are taking a master program and PhD program in Marwa now, and they will be trained and they will start before the end of the program, the real master program, autonomous master program in Niamey. This is what we are doing. In this program also, it's planned to have 9 PhD. One already started in Ngaoundéré, and he is now in Tromsø, Mamadou Saliou. One also have already started in Bamako. 2 are planned to start in Niamey. They will come either in Bamako or in Ngaoundéré to start. But before 26, we expect to have 9 PhD in the program, as well as more than 40 master students trained with the master degree. And in the frame of the program, also we have what we call the Centre des Archives Digital Education and Dissemination, Center of Archive, Digital Education and Dissemination also. And in that frame, we are planning to have a kind of digital tool of which all the 4 partners can access, to have education tool, to have all the film we made in the frame of visual anthropology since 1992 to nowadays.
Yeah. We'll come back to that in the end, yeah.
Okay.
And then we also have the Sahel par lui-même.
Okay.
Yeah, which is what we are also going. We also have an intervention called the Sahel par lui-même, which is an applied research, collaborative research strategy, which is what we're going to talk about now. Yeah, it's yeah.
Okay, and as I already told you, those are the different partners: Bamako in Mali, Niamey in Niger, Marwa and Ngaoundéré both in Cameroon. You can see it on the yellow on the map. This is the program Sahel on Sahel. Unfortunately, Tromsø is not here.
It's not there. You know, Alwala, I don't think this. Yeah. Okay. So this is the Sahel.
Yeah.
Yeah, which has the name of the. And yeah, so this is the region we work. Okay. So this program for today was discussed with Beate since before Christmas, and we have submitted films and proposed a panel, and so much have happened in this project since the invitation came out. So we have decided that this film called Everyday Survival, which was in the program, we will not screen it because then we would only have 10 minutes for discussions. So we have preferred to upload the film. It's online and available, and it's made by one of our master students. It's a very nice film about life at the border of Jagari, this river which portrays a life of a large household who fish, who cultivates, and who have some animals, and it follows this family over through 2 seasons, the dry season and the rainy seasons, and the different challenges in their lives. And what is this and there's several conflicts developing, which are due to climatic changes. So the climatic changes is one of the growing problem that people in the Sahel has to deal with. And here comes the departure of our project, which is about coping with crises.
Please. Again. Again. And again. Again.
Yeah. No,
Again.
I think I'll have to stand
Good.
here. Or?
Mhm.
Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah. The main idea of our project, current project, start from crisis in Sahel, jihadism, drought, opiate crisis, migration, civil wars, inter-ethnic crisis, and so on, so on. You know, for example, in Mali since 2012, there was a crisis, the jihadists coming and also rebel group in the northern Mali. They were going toward the north, the south to invade all Mali. And since now there is ongoing crisis in Mali, the northern Mali and the center of Mali, they are killing all the time. You can say that there is armed conflict, banditry, and terrorism all the time. Some sociologists even theorize it that in Mali, they say that there is a kind of business of banditry and terrorism in Mali. In addition to that, we already had drought. Trond was talking about climate change yesterday in an informal discussion. He was asking me, do people talk about climate change in Mali? I said, no, we have another problem bigger than climate change. It's not because we are not concerned, because we have been always concerned by climate change. Because if you know Mali, we had in 1967, 1973, 1948, several drought and shortage of food because of raining season were very short, and the population were confronted with those kind of problem related to climate and environment several times, and we are not talking about that. And in May, for example, he knows when we are in Mali, it's almost 40 degrees on the shadow, and this kind of crisis, you can encounter them everywhere almost on the Sahel. In Niger, it's almost the same. We have the problem of terrorism. In Burkina Faso, we have almost the same problem. In northern Cameroon, we have almost the same problem with Boko Haram coming from Maiduguri to enter in Cameroon. And in addition to that, we have other kind of crises. In addition to climatic crisis, jihadist crisis, we have what we call political crisis with several coups, 2 coup d'etat in Mali, 1 coup d'etat in Guinea-Conakry, neighbor country of Mali, and also in Burkina Faso. From all those, that's why we say that we have to try to see how to, our way as anthropologists to tackle this problem. And we say that the problem is root from the different problem of Sahel is come from different things. For example, the language. For example, I'm speaking English, the official language of Mali is French, but you have more than 20 languages, for example, in Mali, more than 2,000 in Cameroon.
285,
yeah. Yeah, 285 in Cameroon is maybe the same in Burkina Faso and so on, everywhere. We say that the problem is maybe a kind of miscommunication. Instead of a solution coming from below, the solution are always coming from up to down, and we have this miscommunication. And also the political grammar, which means it's like the elite group are always dictating what to do to the population. And as consequences for that, we have like communicative barriers and alienation of people below normal population and so on. Yeah.
I just wanted to give you an image, an idea of the change here. In 2009, I was a half year in northern Mali with my family, and we were up in the far north region, and it's so beautiful. I mean, I'm from northern Norway, which is really beautiful, but this is, I mean, it's amazing.
What do you find?
And then that was the first time I talked to my wife about retirement. I mean, when we get old, my wife, couldn't we, you know, stay? This is the region I would like to stay. This was 2014, small girls came with suicide belts and tried to kill people, you know. So there's been from paradise to hell in a 5 years' time. And these are the kind of changes we're talking. It's extremely brutal. It's extremely brutal, the changes. But then when these things are happening, what we assume that, okay, the root thing here, the basic problem here is language and political grammar. You know, French as a language, it's an increased analphabetism in the region. So people are not able to communicate on a discussion level in Francais. But most important is that political system that was installed partly by Germans in Cameroon, but then taken up by the French, has an extremely steep hierarchy and has been extremely efficient when it comes to take away responsibility on local level. You know, to chef de village. Yeah, we are talking about these things in French. Sorry. The village chiefs have lost their authority, their power, and so on. So local arenas for discussing and taking decision about what's going on locally has disappeared. I remember when I was winding up my PhD work, and I walked the quarter and discussed with the elders, you know, and asked them, so what have been the changes in your lifetime? And they would say, Al-Kabalwala, which is in Fulfulde means, there's no confidence left. You know, we don't trust each other anymore. So this is a really dramatic development in the region. And that's where we are kind of focusing here.
Yeah, as Trond said, yes. Our assumption is local community population below have lost their traditional space for decision making, for reflection, participation, and for expression. And in order to bring a kind of accountability and a responsibility, we have like to give back again, or to have the impression that population below have the possibility to communicate and what to do, what they want, and inside the community and between community. And films could be beautiful tools to do that.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, so because what's happening now is that UN and African Union and so on, they say that we have now had military interventions in the Sahel since 2012, and it has only been worse. What we need is to try to find this local mechanism for problem solving. Okay, sounds like a good idea, but how do you do that? And that's where this space to create discourses among people were characterized more or less with mistrust or lack of, there's that level. How do you approach that? And that's where this idea about collaborative filmmaking comes in. You know, that collaborative filmmaking is that space, or could be that space for reflection. So reflection through storytelling, reflection through creating stories together, and through that kind of dialogue, open up for seeing some kind of possibilities. And we very much built and collaborated with Len Kamerling, who has been working with on community-generated filmmaking in Alaska, amazing work. Yeah. Right, so we are now introducing several ways of working with collaborative filmmaking, but not only that, but also how to use the process of making films and the finalized films to engage with communities. And that's what we are going to talk about now. Okay, these are some of our inspiration. Of course, Lisbeth Holtedal to the left, who has been supervising all of us and was initiating and building up the visual anthropology program in Tromsø, and very much the person always, initiating, what collaboration is more than just an academic exchange of ideas. It has something more into it. Of course, we build on Charouche, evident for people here, but then to the right, Ibrahim Ag Yusuf, he is the first Tuareg Malian with a PhD, and he is a highly reputed peace negotiator and was the name behind the peace negotiation in northern Mali in the 90s, who built up this strategy of intra and inter-community dialogue in peace processes. And so he is one of the mentors or one of the key external persons in this project to kind of navigate us toward how to use these kind of processes in peace from below research. Okay, so these are some of the ideas behind and some of our history. So now I'm going to go through what we are doing concretely right now to engage with community and how we use film in a collaborative ways to engage in concrete processes, right? A short step behind is that since I gave my first visual anthropology workshop in Cameroon in 2003, with Cameroonian colleagues then, I got so much inspiration that I then was a youth researcher in Northern Norway without job, and I started this project called Youth Gaze. So for 15 years, what we did was that we worked with youths that Norwegian social service would say were at risk. We taught them to make films about their lives, right? That's a long story, but the principal outcome of that was that two things happened. One thing was that the young person that were taught to make film learned about his or her own situation, had a new gaze on his or her life situation. And secondly, something happened around them. I used to say that I never had so many hugs from grandmothers than when working with that project. We had screenings for family and stuff, and they kind of saw their grandchildren with new eyes. So filmmaking can be used in micro processes like that to kind of create something, to create a space of reflection. In 2019, we did the same thing in Bamako.
Yes, it was a kind of pilot project because we were planning to have this project from 2021 to 2026. He came to Bamako. I was saying that we went to Bamako. I was already there in Bamako. He came to Bamako. We made a first workshop, and we try to kind of experiment, to experience what we are planning to do in this project. We selected three students, one coming from the center of Bamako and two coming from the north of Bamako, to try to see how they can make a film on their own situation of internal displaced person, and to see how we can communicate that. And we did it in 2 weeks. They made a film on their situation in Bamako, and we projected the film with the different people involving in the film, themselves as filmmakers, and also the official, some political official and university lecturers and so on. And we had an amazing feedback from people. They say that this is amazing because with all the information we are receiving by TV, by the newspaper, and so on, this is completely different. And this is also real because we have real people showing in those films. How can you continue? And that was also our wish, that was our aim, and we continue with that. And with the funding we got, we went to Marwa in January, and we try to start the same thing also over there.
Just to say that, okay. One of these girls that were in our
Back, please.
in the course that Sidylamine and me gave in
Back.
in 2019, she's now a master student at our visual anthropology program in Tromsø. Okay, so now we'll start talk business here. So this is Marwa. No, this is Marwa, far north region of Cameroon. It's in what the French Ministry for the EU says is in the red zone. So it's a no-go area for officials, which means that it's close. Boko Haram is kind of controlling part of the mountain areas to the border to Nigeria. In Marwa, there's Mouazamou and two others hold a PhD, partly supervised by my colleagues in Tromsø, Lisbeth and Bjørn, and they are now running a master program in visual anthropology. And what we are doing now is to kind of try to engage with communities through audiovisual storytelling. We have these former students. They are already PhD students. They are now trained to become film teachers. So they have an experience doing fieldwork in this specific region. They are, most of them, native from the region. They've done fieldwork there, and they are now told to become film teachers. And what we do is, here you see from the classroom, Sidylamine was there, and I don't see, but Mouazamou is also there, and Babette and Ganawa. What they do then is that they, knowing the field, are told to, okay, now you are going to make a film about a topic that is interesting in that field, or with a person that you know, hold and have an experience that's worth to tell, right? So what we saw here was Michael, he worked with tramadol. This opiate crisis is really, terrible. But then what we do is to teach different methodologies, how to go from an idea about a story I want to tell to a synopsis to wait for that one.
Back again.
And we use, I don't know, maybe many of you know these sun methods. You know, you put the team you want to work on in the middle, and the sunbeams are different scenes or sequences. And we work with different drawing techniques and so on. And then we go into shooting. So me and Sidylamine and Mouazamou were there to make our students film teachers. Here are some of the students. And then this photo.
Go down. Again.
One of our students,
again.
Juventus, she has been working in this specific neighborhood, and I won't go into her masterwork, but she knew this one woman that was recently divorced, and her husband took the children, 4 children with her, and left her with her mother. And this woman, Yanga, she appeared as nothing had happened, or was a smiling, beautiful woman that we couldn't see that this had happened to her. So Juventus, our PhD student, approached Yanga to try if she could make a film about her life situation, and she agreed. And what happened was just extremely interesting. She first kind of interviewed Yanga and did some daily life stuff, and then with her mother. And then, as you see here, Yanga to the left here in yellow, talking about her situation with friends. And what happened then, you can, I think it comes out from that photo, you see the engagement, you know, the temperature in the debate when questions about divorce being discussed. So they would have similar kind of experience of not being married or not had to quit school, or, you know, different kind of stories about how it is to be a woman in Marwa today. Okay, so that was, so Juventus made a film about Yanga during the course where she taught to be a film teacher. And here you see the teams. Actually, there's 2 film teams. These 4 PhD students, two are conducting film teams, and then those two, no. Yeah, we also have a team of 2 that work as a équipe pédagogique. Okay, I'm sorry, it's hard to go up and down here. Right, okay, so when we learned that in the neighborhood where Juventus did her fieldwork, there were quite many women and also young men who were engaged in work in these questions related to gender issues. We decided that, okay, they will give a workshop over a certain number of weeks, which will be focusing on family gender issues, right? So what happened next then was that they went out, you see here Dr. Babette Kulsumi to the right. I think she was in Göttingen with her film some back in 2008-ish. Here supervising the film teachers and following the research process, which is the dialogue about how these films are made and the points, you know, the ideas coming up and how they are discussed between these different youths when discussing their synopsis. They are D for film. And then, yeah, you see here, this woman wanted to make a film on divorce. Okay, so from February to early April, they were doing these workshops, 2 groups working on different films. Yeah, so in this first round, we have made 12 films. And I can brief, we won't have time to look at them, and they are subtitled in French, where we are now, but I could just say what they're about. There's one, l'égoïsme des aînés, which is the egoism of elders, or which Monique is the filmmaker of this film. She's really upset about her elder brothers not helping her out with her studies, and the tendency that big brothers don't, or the elders in a family will not take care of youngers, and she has to work instead of going to school. And she even, there's the photo to the right here shows her, Monique, coming to school but coming too late, so the inspector is there at the gate chasing her. And then you see her to the left with her friends in the Marigot, in the dried out river. They sit their friends smoking water pipe and discussing about school system and about families, and boys and girls have very different opinions about how families works and so on, and how families support their children in education. There's another film which has a working title, La Vieille Déplacée, the old lady, the old displaced lady, would it be? Which is a very beautiful portrait of this very old lady made by her grandson, and shows the affection between the two of them, but it also shows beautifully the role that old person has in the extended family and controlling or holding contact with people they have family both in Chad and Nigeria and their illness and stuff, and she kind of have it all. And a third one, La Rêve de ma vie, the dream of my life, is a portrait of this young, and yet it has various qualities. I just have to respect, I'm not going to go into them, but now I'm going to tell how, so what? So, and I think that's a very important question all of us should ask you. Okay, we made this film, I got my film on my CV and I got a promotion. Is that enough? How to use these films, right? And we have plans. That is a step we are very much focusing on, how to use films in communication, in trying to trigger dialogues. So we are organizing screenings. This is in front of the Laboratoire d'Anthropologie Visuelle, in front of the Department of Visual Anthropology in Maroua. So they do screenings here. But what we have decided to do, no, I'm not, sorry. We are, of course, in this strategy of communicating with communities, we are also using films that are in our archives. There are many films made. And I would just mention this one, Maria 13 ans, il a 13 ans, married at 13 years ago, which is about this young woman. And we had the soutenance, the defense. I was supervising, you see, that's the Aminata, the woman in the middle, she was married at 13, and she came to the defense, and it was just a magic moment, and you can see the rector to her left. Yeah, it was a very emotional, and I was a very proud supervisor here presenting that film. The film is made by Mustafa in the middle. That film was screened with also one of those films I'm talking about at 8 March. Because if there's something West African countries are good at, you could say, is to celebrate those international days, like the 1st of May, 8th of March. There are many of them. They are, where is that list? The International Day for Health and other kind of days. So we are now constantly developing, projecting and plans for these various international days. So we are now, so we did that the 8th of March, and you could see here that, I have these WhatsApp accounts with 100 photos that have been sent to me. So I was going through it, and these are some of what I found, is that our pedagogical team had prepared to show this film about being married at 13 and one of these others, prepared questions and screen it for these, always talking about this in French, these women organizations that gathered for the 8th of March, and it creates a very vivid kind of debate. We also had it screened in the village where she married, and to trigger debates. Yeah, so we are now working on how these films can be screened in the quarters that they are made and then connected to other milieus. We are also, could we go to the web page? Could you help me?
Did you already have Wi-Fi on your computer?
Yeah, could you help me get it to the? Oh, yeah, okay. So yeah, we also have a web page where we are building up resources,
You don't have time.
questions that these films could be questions to these films that could be used for people that, you know, over students who are presenting them in different local contexts. We also want them to be used on these international days. And then thirdly, we are also trying to develop courses for undergraduate, on bachelor level, on, in this case, gender and anthropology. So that's, and that means that these films could also be used for in the Sahel, in Mali and in Niger, to discuss topics. You know, these topics are also of interest there. So this is a way where we try to have impact, to contribute concretely, to trigger discussions, and to to create these kind of spaces for discussion, but also try to responsibilize populations. You know, so problems are here and have to be handled here. So this is one way of working. We are now, 1st of June, these 4 PhD students and 1 professor are starting a next project, which is about how one specific village in the Mandara mountain treats the problem of lack of water. And then the students themselves, or this PhD student themselves, will make the films. And they will work intensively for 2 months. And then we have plans for the rest of this year. And then the coming years, we will have a new year of this kind of intervention, ethnographic action, or what we would like to call it, in Gaundre, and then later on in Bamako, and so on.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think that was a very rough, fast going through of how we collaborate.
And that was the conclusion of Trond.
Yeah. Do you have questions or comments before we go to the next part, which will be to see a film?
Okay, thank you very much for your very interesting presentation. And then you just referred to the second part of your presentation, which is going to be the film screening.
Yeah.
And I think we have now 15 minutes for comments and questions to this presentation. There's already a question here.
Yeah.
So you said that you showed your film to different audiences and to try and engender debate. So I'm interested in how...
So I'm Annelies Kustas. My question is, you said that you showed to the films, you screened the films to different audiences, but I'm interested in what happened then. How did they receive the films? Did you do any research on the effectiveness of this kind of encouragement of debates?
That's what we really want to find out, and we are just starting. So it has been a lot of work to find out ways to have screening practices which could go without too much work, because there's Cameroonian communities are really constructed differently from our European communities, and persons wanting to screen a film approaching a community is something they never heard about. So we meet all these kind of obstacles. So we had to work quite a lot to negotiate with those who are responsible for these international days that I was referring to, and go through them. So we have, where we are now been using more time of finding administrative solutions than to actually do research. But that is really our intentions. But just to, this film about being married at 13, what very much came out of that debate is the discussion, what is a marriage? What do that mean? And the importance to be a full person, which you only are if you are married. But married does not necessarily mean what we often put in it, which has to be about the sexual relation. And you know, so all these kind of things came up, but on a very general level, but then economy, tradition, religion are mentioned as parameters, and several would say it's the religion who asks us, which is then rejected by those in the audience that have a more profound Muslim training. And, you know, so these kind of things went on. And I have only been reported by these students, and I haven't, you know, they haven't done it in a systematic way yet. But this is where we are heading.
Yeah, is that we are looking for, because what will happen next, and as I told about the experience in Mali and also the other experiences in Cameroon, is like the ongoing process. The process is not ended, and we are trying also to find out what to get and how we will improve our work and how we will involve in what we are doing now, right now. It's a process going on, it's not ended.
Okay, there's another question here.
Thank you very much for the presentation. Maybe it's a kind of a follow-up question what we had yesterday with Trond, and because as far as I understood, there is also kind of an inter-community kind of a conflict, and one of the biggest problems is the kind of a language. And then how do you think this form of audiovisual way, I mean, would help this kind of a, how to say, facilitate, you know, just these problems between the communities? Or have you been thinking on any other forms of storytelling which would actually create kind of a common ground between them?
First I will talk after you. I'll talk about the film as a medium to facilitate communication inside a community or between community when we address it from the side of communicative barrier, because the film as a tool, normally if you made a good film, you don't need subtitle, you don't need the language. The film communicates as a language itself. The image communicates as a language itself. And from the image, it triggers discussion inside community. Film becomes like a kind of tool. People discuss about it. And if a particular film is made about a topic which can interest people in conflict in a community, it can be a tool which can gather both sides to discuss about. And from the discussion, they can find a solution. Trond, if you want to continue.
Thank you for that question. We are experimenting with ways of working, right? So this was built on one certain kind of experience. Now we're going to do something next. We are also very conscious about, you know, trying to gather experience and see how things works, because we are now approaching more delicate issues, you would say. We have our colleague, Dr. Babette Kulsumo, who is working on repatriation of Boko Haram, widows of Boko Haram soldiers. So that is one approach. That is one, then the one coming in August. We also have our PhD student. She works on inter-community conflicts, which has been violent. And she wants to organize a workshop with members from these two communities that together are going to tell stories, right? And they are going to develop their stories in a common workshop. Okay, so this can't be done by me or by someone coming from this. This is done by people that had ethnographic knowledge, who have the coverage of the Monsieur le Préfet, le Gouverneur, who are connected to the conflict research group at the university, and so on and so forth. And it's discussed with the village chiefs in the two villages, and their people, right? So it is not kind of jump in and do an intervention, but it is kind of situated in its context and that student, she's also from that region. So it's kind of, it's not an easy fix we are talking about. I mean, it is, but it's a way to trigger and provoke and participate. And our mentor Ibrahim Al-Yusuf, he says that Sahel is in a rut. We have to do something. I mean, we have just to do something. We can't sit and wait. And we just have to try to come up with some ideas. And this is the idea we got up with. Come up with, yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
The question was if it would also be a good possibility to do participatory workshops or collaborative workshops with music.
We are this introduced beautifully the next step here, which is, so what we have, so now we've been talking about crises and problems and shitty things, right? But the other aspect which is equally important to us is what tradition or culture or pottery or dance and conts and this part. And that is also what we are into, and especially into how traditions might be of relevance today.
Anyway, or music, films, and all kind of any kind of art can help to have communication inside community and inter-communities.
Process is ongoing. There's another question.
Regarding the conscious authorship of their own image or the image of their communities, if it is created in a space or in the context of the communication within those communities, but it is screened internationally, how conscious are they taught, maybe also with the perception of their image? Of the images, the films they're making.
It's up to you as an international audience to evaluate or to judge the content of the films, but the films are made for the local communities, how it can develop, how it can help them to develop their internal communication, as we said. But dealing about the judgment of evaluation of international community, it's up to the international community or international audience to see what they think about it.
Yeah, but just to add briefly, I think they are, through these processes, are getting a very conscious idea about it, about images and the potential in visual stories, because what we have seen and what we are now dealing with is, the dynamics around some of these films, and especially one film which is about she is so upset about that her father only paid the school fees for the brothers and not for the sisters, right? And that's the kind of departure of the film, which does not include the father in the film, but he was asked but didn't want to, and now they are negotiating if this film could be screened with the father and the mother. And so the thing is, yeah, great success. It kind of created a debate, right? But if we are going to screen it internationally, or if it's going to be used in our screening program in Cameroon, we don't know yet, but we are kind of, yeah. So they have consciousness, and I mean, many of them, none of them met me, but seeing a video camera they talk about the white man's world immediately, and that they hope that the images should be brought to Europe. And, so there's all these different things here, but they are conscious, and that consciousness creates these kind of debates we want to trigger.
Okay, we have time for one last question. Peter Crawford here in the second.
Right, yes. This is the first session of the conference, so this is almost addressing the whole conference, and I know that there are going to be other sessions, and I have a general comment that I think we will be addressing throughout the conference, which has to do with actually the title of the conference, but also the presentations and your presentation, which is, I think we have a language issue perhaps, but certainly a conceptual issue of what do we actually mean by collaborative. And I'm sorry to say so, but I feel that you haven't really spoken about collaboration in ethnographic film. I'm not even sure we should be talking about that. You've mainly been talking about something that certainly in English we would describe as cooperation between partner institutions rather than collaboration in ethnographic film. So I'm very uncomfortable with this term, and increasingly so, collaboration, because we need to qualify what do we mean by it. And I know it's not fair because we haven't seen the films, but you chose yourself not to see the films. But I'm very happy that in the conference you decided to have also authorial diversity, and I think that's what we're perhaps going to see, and therefore it's a pity. I don't see the two films that you were intending to show as a collaborative in. Well, they are, but is there a need to address that? I think all anthropology, all documentary filmmaking is collaborative. And therefore, I'm a bit skeptical when people call them collaborative. Why do they need to do that? I know the next session is with our friends from Brazil. Brazil are pioneers in collaborative filmmaking efforts. I mean, I'm not just talking about the marvelous project of Vincent Carelli with Video in the Villages, or indeed what I hope we're going to see today, or indeed what Terry Turner did many, many years ago with the Kayapo Indians, or indeed the work that your moderator has been doing in parts of Africa, where I feel that at least there it is discussed, what do we mean by collaborative? But I think we should abandon the word. I think we should talk about authorial diversity instead. I think that's far more important.
Thank you very much, Peter, for this comment.
I wasn't quite finished.
Okay.
So what I wanted to ask you, we are still going to see your film, Sidylamine. Yeah. So I'd like you just to briefly explain what's collaborative about it.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Sidylamine.
Yeah, because I'm, of course, you know better than this, Peter, but I have not gone into explain in each film project how we collaborate about meaning making and discussing images and discussing synopsises and so on. And we do a lot of work on that, and we do ethnographic recording on that. So that is a part of the research project process here. Now I tried to lift it, or we tried to lift it and to show how we also try to use. I think that the collaboration works very well because it's so, academia, and especially I would say academia in Francophone Africa is really about having distance. So that's why we are calling our new programs collaborative visual anthropology. What I also said from the beginning is that we are now talking about these specific film projects coming out here now, and that what Sidylamin's film were selected by the film committee and put into this program without us knowing it. So it comes from another kind of work that was before this project started. So it's due to how it was. So it was about, this is how GIF chose to organize the session. But yes, it is collaboration on the level of interpreting images, on the way of how to construct the story, and how to circulate it in the community. So yeah, sorry, Peter, but I really disagree with your comment.
Okay, I'm afraid we can't resolve this at the moment because we have to really shift to your film.
Yeah.
Unless we want, we want to have a small discussion after the film too. But do you want to have a very brief introduction to your film?
Maybe I will answer to the question after the film of Peter. We will have time for that.
Okay, thank you to both of you very much for your very interesting presentation. And let's watch the film, and then we still have a short Sidylamine, please come. Give a hand to the filmmaker, please. So thank you very much for this great piece. I think it was a real interesting and intense sensory experience of the ritual. And I was surprised that the woman said it's for joy and for entertainment as well. I was rather scared if I would have been there. So thanks a lot. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about the context of the film. Like, was it part of a bigger research project, or were you asked by the villagers to document it? Just tell us a little bit how you came to make this film, please.
Quick introduction of this film will be the answer for the question of Peter Crawford as well. This was a project coming from a collaboration because I was still an associate researcher of the Institute of Humanities of Bamako, as you know. Also, I teach at the Conservatory of Art and Multimedia of Bamako. And they had this aim because we know in Mali they have this traditional education disappearing, how we can digitalize them, how we can keep them in order to not lose all of what we have as memory of and history in terms of traditional education. And in that frame, this collaboration between Institute of Humanity and Sidylamine and the Conservatory of Bamako, I was the filmmaker because I did also the research, as you said, because it's a part of big research in Mali as we are trying to memorize, to keep all this traditional education all over in Mali in order to not lose them forever.
Okay. Are there any questions from the audience, or Peter and then Francina, I think?
I just need to make my point clear. Again, I think you're talking about cooperation, not collaboration. You're talking about cooperation between various institutions. I don't think you need to waste energy on discussing whether this film is collaborative or not. That's what I was trying to say. It is collaborative. And it's so obviously collaborative, there's no point in discussing it. You're making an almost classical ethnographic film that you couldn't make without working together with the people in the film. And I really appreciate that, and I love your film. What it isn't in a collaborative sense is you don't release the control as a director, or your cameraman releases control of the camera, or anybody releases control of the distribution that we had a comment about here. That village has not decided that the film is going to be shown here or even submitted here. That was what I was getting at. I don't think we should talk about collaboration. I think we should congratulate you for making a wonderful film, and I think you should stick to your authorial responsibility having done it.
Yeah, I should add something about that before the next question. You may be right, but you are wrong on the last part of your answer, because it is still a collaboration. I can understand. In English, it can be cooperation, but not collaboration in one sense. But in the other sense, it is collaboration as well, because they are very reluctant to be filmed, because they don't want the ceremony to be filmed. And even I said it that they don't want the formal secret ceremony, they don't want to film that. But even this fake ceremony, as I can say it, they didn't want also to be filmed. But we spent 1 week on the field to try to convince them. It's helped them when we store this image for the Mali, but also for their own community, but also for them as the master of this initiation as Kote. In that sense, for me, it's still collaboration. Even if I'm not English like you. Yeah. Yeah, in that sense, exactly. I didn't add that, sorry.
Okay, there's another question in the fourth row.
It is a question pointing in the direction, how did the camera person not get burned?
Of course, we were burned twice on the night. Yeah, yeah, we were burned twice. Yes, really, by the fire. We were, but it's okay because we are ready for that. As anthropologists, as not filmmaker, but as anthropologists.
Other questions from the audience? Not right now. I have a small question. You decided not to translate the song into French or into English, but to keep it in the local language. Why is that?
Yeah, two reasons. The first is because I don't know the meaning of the song, and even they don't know the meaning of the song. It's like if I will take a song of English of middle age to tell to Peter Kaufer, he won't be able to translate it. I couldn't translate it. I don't know the meaning, and also the guy didn't know all the meaning but he told me that he can't reveal the meaning. But I understand that is not the language of nowadays. It's like ritual language, as you know. All of the ritual language are not common language. That's why I didn't translate. Partly I can understand the song, some part of it, but some part of it, it doesn't mean nothing because I don't know the language. Even the man singing doesn't know the meaning of the language. That's the reason.
Okay, but you could put it in words, but you didn't know what it meant. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, maybe we can have one more last question or comment from the audience in the back, please.
Check. Okay. What does it take to become the chief of the ceremony that we just witnesses? Who decided who is the headmaster?
Okay. There is like a secret society, like in all the religion. They have also their religion, traditional religion, we can say. They have the committee as they decide who can be, for example, the priest in the church or the pastor in the church, for example, is almost the same, who knows the language of the rituals and who knows the tradition well than the others, and who is also is like in all kind of society, the organization, they decided the main criteria why this can be the leader or this cannot be the leader because of that or because of that. It's similar like in all kind of religion in the world.
Okay, so I think the time is up, unfortunately. We have a 10-minute break and then we continue with the next presentation. Thank you very much again, Sidylamine and Trond.